Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of All Consuming Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about August Burns Red, their new album, Death Below. But before that, I have some housekeeping to do and I will make it quick. First, Tyler and I were just interviewed by the Christian Metal Facebook group, and it's like a video interview that we did, and it's on their YouTube if you want to check it out. It was a great interview. We talked about who we are, why we do this podcast, and like where our heart is at in this. But if you have a Facebook, we recommend you join their group and chat with tens of thousands of people from all over the world and different backgrounds and beliefs. Second, for those that didn't know, I have been putting timestamps in the details of the episode, the bio, whatever you want to call it. So if you really don't want to hear us talk so much, or you just want to jump to a certain part that you want to hear, there's timestamps for where we start songs, that kind of stuff. So you can jump ahead to the parts that you do want to hear. Third, patrons, thank you. We wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for you. And so a special shout out to Peter, Adam, Trey, Heavy Metal Prophet, and let me see if I can do this one right. His name is I Did It for the Mug. We appreciate you guys. All right, here's the episode. So Tyler, what's new? I haven't seen you or heard from you since our last one.
You know, I'm doing great. It's coming up on the last day of school, and so recording this tomorrow is our last day of school.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's a half day tomorrow, and then got the rest of this week of football, and then it's summer vacation.
Must be nice to have the summer off, huh?
I mean, I don't get paid for it, so there's that, but
I'll pay you.
It's still cool. Yeah, it's nice.
Come hang out with me and make my coffee and stuff for work, and I'll give you like $5 a day.
Okay, I'm down.
Cool.
It's like the thing about like having summers off. It's cool, you know, but like sometimes there's just like when you plan your vacations, there's places you can't go in the summer, right? I mean, like you can, but it's going to be unbearable. You can't go to Arizona, you know. You can't go to Florida. You can, but it's not going to be great. Yeah. So this summer, we're planning a trip to Vancouver and Victoria, British Columbia.
Sweet.
So we're going up to Canada for the 4th of July. Actually, we'll be up there. So that's going to be weird. It's like the most American thing somebody could do is go to a different country on the 4th of July. So we'll bring our own fireworks and just go, you know, yee-hawing on it. So I don't know. But yeah, I'm excited for summer break. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be great. What's new with you?
I'm a little jealous, but there's a lot of things new with me. First of all, my son had surgery almost 2 weeks ago now. He has adenoids and tonsils taken out. Boy.
Rough.
Yeah, I mean, the first day after, of surgery and stuff, like, piece of cake. They're, like, warning us about stuff, and I'm like, he seems just fine. He's eating all kinds of food.
Yeah.
But probably, like, 3 or 4 days in, he just decided he doesn't want to eat.
Oh.
And he also hated his pain medication, which is just ibuprofen and stuff and Tylenol, but like every 3 hours alternating, just like so much of it. And he's like, he would prefer to feel the pain than to drink that stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, doesn't it hurt to swallow? Like he wasn't doing anything except sucking on ice cubes. And like now that he's like talking again and playing and eating food again, like he's just so much skinnier. Like you can see it like in his collarbone.
Yeah.
Like his shoulders and stuff.
Just
like
in that short amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, I don't know, 10 days maybe till he got back to normal. But, and he like wouldn't talk. He'd like hit you and like point at stuff and be like, like doing sign language. I'm like, you want me to go upstairs? Okay, why? It's like, why do you want me to go upstairs? Yeah. But so that's been an exciting thing. And Jen's grandma from Georgia came to visit us for a week, and she stayed here for a while, and then now she's at Jen's aunt's house, and then she'll be back here before she heads back. But yeah, and more excitingly, I saw Striper.
I mean, I don't know. I think I might take a kid getting his tonsils taken out over Striper, dude. Come on.
I'd rather my child go through surgery and have a difficult time than watch Striper.
Okay, so you saw Striper, and it's kind of like, I was talking to you about this before, and I was like, Striper, really? You're like, it's the foundation of, like, the Christian metal band that made it kind of mainstream, that made it big. Like, you got to, give tribute to the people that came before. And so, was it great?
It was. I mean, I grew up listening or hearing Stryper because my dad was very into him.
Right.
And I know like probably 4 songs. And I re-listened to like their newest album, and musically the production and stuff on their newer stuff is way better than their older stuff in my opinion. But at the same time, their older stuff is like correct for the genre and era. So it's like I prefer that because it's like it's good music, like our kind of music. But then Michael Sweet's doing his over the top, and I'm just like, this feels weird with this quality of drums and this quality of guitar riffs and stuff. But yeah, seeing him live, it was great. That just seeing, it was mostly like a bunch of old dudes and a bunch of young people, like teenagers. I felt like there's dads bringing their kids, like this is what I listened to as a kid, you know. But
so you didn't feel like the youngest person in the room?
No, I was definitely middle aged.
Dude, because like I felt like at the Killswitch show we went to, August Burns Red Killswitch, we felt like we were kind of the young ones there.
Yeah.
And we
There's
were
a lot of older Killswitch fans, yeah.
In our early 30s, we feel like everyone was like 40s, 50s, you know?
Yeah.
Easy. And so that was like an eye opener. So it wasn't like that?
No. There's definitely an older crowd.
Sure.
Like 60s. But there was like, I don't know, probably at least 30 20 and under kind of thing. Like it was very surprising. But yeah, I went with my buddy, and my dad went, and a bunch of my dad's friends were there, and family, and so it was a good time. I mean, you know, Stryper, they played a lot of Christian stuff, and they wailed, and I mean, every song had guitar solos.
Sure, yeah.
So, you know, 2 hours in, you're like, I think I know this song, even though I haven't heard it before. You're gonna start with a guitar solo.
Yeah.
Michael Sweet's gonna go for like a minute, and then like 3/4 of the way through, instead of a breakdown, there'll be 2 guitars doing guitar solos. Right. So it's just very riff heavy, which is really cool. Like, I mean, I had a good time. I think it's, if they're going to your town and you're on the fence, I would say do it. Unless you're like Tyler and you're just like, say no to power metal.
I sort of feel bad about this, but I did take some street cred for Stryper, even though I don't like Stryper. So we had a church potluck.
Stolen glory, is that what I'm hearing?
We had a church potluck after church, you know, and it's a Southern Baptist type deal, like potluck. Everyone brings food, and it's like a thing you do, you know. And we brought our lawn chairs out. We ate outside, you know. There was smoked meat and all that great stuff. And so we're eating, you know, and inevitably, like with any social gathering of any kind in my life now, somehow the podcast gets brought up, right?
I don't know how you do that, because no one talks about it.
Dude, I swear, like, I'm not the one bringing it up, you know? Like, I don't want...
That's all Tyler talks about.
Yeah,
just
like,
stay away from him.
My pastor, he sent me this meme recently, and it was like, it was basically like a picture of me he snapped when I wasn't looking with my legs like crossed, like sitting kind of proper. And he's like, "Did you know that I have a podcast?" And it was like memed. I'm like, dude, I don't ever do that. It just comes up. You know what I mean? Like it just comes up. Like somebody's like, "So, what do you do for fun?" I'm like, "Well, I do this, and you know, I have a podcast or whatever." You know, I just like talk about it, or they ask me about it because they heard from someone else.
Yeah.
Anyway, so one of our associate pastors, he was sitting next to me and he was talking, and he's like, "So you have a podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah," you know. And he's like, "So what is it on?" And told him like heavy like Christian music, like screamo. I always have to preface it and say,
because if you say metal, people, you know,
think
there's
Stryper.
There's so many ways to take that.
Right.
And if you say heavy, you know, I don't like saying extreme, because then it's like they're gonna think black metal or something.
Right,
you know,
right.
it's like not that extreme. Like, but yeah, I get you.
Yeah, you kind of have to just say screamo, you know. And so he was like, "Oh, that's interesting. Like, what are some, you know, bands?" And I'm like,
You're like, "Oh, I'm on the spot. I actually don't know anything. Let me text Gary."
August Burns Red. Under no, they're not Christian anymore. You know. Like, but anyways, and that's he didn't hear about any of them, and then, so kind of a little awkward for a little bit. But then I was like, "But did you know that my buddy who does the podcast with me, he's at Stryper, or yeah, it was Sunday. He's at Stryper." Mm-hmm. And I think you went on that right Sunday 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was that day, and I was like, my buddy right now is at Striper. And they're like, no way! Like, they knew it. They're like, we grew up on that. Like, that's what we listened to. Yeah. And, like, that was, like, they were, like, all in it, you know? And I'm like, yeah, you know? But deep down inside, I'm like, oh, my gosh. I sold my soul for just, like, a little bit of, like, let me get you guys on board here. And they started talking about Striper. And then, gosh, what's the other one? Pretty popular.
Petra, White Cross?
Petra. And then Petra, and this guy's like, I have 6 Petra CDs, and that was my jam, and all this stuff. And
that's so funny.
You know, I just kind of played along, and it was good. I took the credit for it, you know, but it was really you that did it.
I went for like a bucket list item, you know, like you got to see them when you have the chance. And you couldn't even tell that they were like, you know, old.
Right.
But like they had tons of energy. They were great on stage. I think you missed out. They told us that they loved Spokane so much that they're going to come again next year for their 40-year anniversary tour or something like that.
Yeah, 40 years?
Yeah.
That's actually, it's crazy, but then you think like August Burns Red's on 20.
Yeah, it's not that crazy.
It's not that crazy.
We're next.
Yeah.
My son will go to it and be like, I don't know. My dad listened to August Burns Red a lot when I was a kid and felt like, you know, I should go listen to these old people music, you know.
Dude, that's totally gonna happen. And it's gonna be so weird, right? Dude, and just kind of a good little segue of August Burns Red, I think. But like August Burns Red though, like I think if you go to August Burns Red show, it's gonna be a super like diverse age group of people, right? It's not the kill switch older people that we saw. It's not just like our age. I think they're still, because there's consistently music being put out over these 20 years, they're still getting fans, right?
Yeah.
So maybe there'll be a little bit of like, you know, think of bands like that transcended time, like I don't know, Aerosmith or something, right? Like
okay,
they're old and then they did like Dream On, but they also did that Armageddon song, you know, or something like that. Okay, that was a terrible example.
I get your what you're thinking, but yeah. Generational.
Yeah. Because if you do it so long, you're going to have a lot of fans. And maybe that's why Striper, like you said at the show, maybe that's why there's two groups of people. I mean, I don't know if they're putting out like music like August Burns Red does.
I mean, a lot of those kids that were there were wearing like Metallica shirts. And maybe, you know, the whole Metallica resurgence. Yeah, maybe they're like, oh, there's a Christian Metallica? Even though, to me, a Christian Metallica is closer to, like, Living Sacrifice. But Living Sacrifice is heavier.
Right, yeah.
But anyway, back to our segue, huh?
Oh, yeah.
So today, thanks for hanging in there with us. We're talking about August Burns Red, Death Below. We put up a question on our Discord to be like, what should we talk about? And plenty of people were like, I mean, we gave them a huge list. Like, lots of bands, lots of stuff. And everyone was like, ABR would be cool, but you should do Oh Sleeper. And it's like, ABR would be cool, but you should do, you know, and so we got a lot of ABRs and then a lot of onesie twosie. A lot of Oh Sleeper.
Right.
There's a lot of that.
And I think, like, we were kind of like, we should do something new because we've done some older ones as of late. So throwing in a new one would be good. Yeah.
So here we are. We're talking about Death Below.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw down a bunch of information. I hope you guys like it. So this album came out March 24th of this year, 2023, which is like right around our birthdays. It is the 10th album. That blew me away. I didn't know we were already on 10. 10th studio album. But it's the first one through this record label, which is Sharp Tone Records.
Yeah. And
the album was produced by a usual two that have done their work, Carson Slovak and Grant McFarland. And those guys have produced a lot of stuff, and they have like a studio together, so they're like their names are together on a lot of stuff.
Right.
I had a huge list of all the stuff that they worked on, but I'm not gonna read that list because it was literally very long. But they've done a lot of August Burns Red albums. They've done like Texas in July, and they're from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which so is August Burns Red.
ABR,
so the lineup of the band has not changed in, I don't know, 15 years?
2004?
Yeah.
6? I don't know. Messengers?
Pushing 20.
Messengers.
Yeah. And that lineup is Jake Lurs, lead vocals, JB Bruderbaker, Lead guitar, Brent Rambler, rhythm guitar. Dustin Davidson on bass and backing vocals, Matt Greiner, drums and piano for this album.
Yeah.
And this album has 4 guest features, which are pretty cool.
Which I think is a little different. Like ABR does definitely have features, but I feel like 4 is way more than
it's
usual.
usually like 1. Like
Yeah.
they had that one Ghost with a Day to Remember on it.
Jeremy McKinnon, yeah.
So this one's got Jesse Leach, best known for Killswitch Engage.
Man, this is the most times we said Killswitch Engage on an episode ever, bro.
I hope this
We've said it like 10 times.
This might be the third to last time I say it. And he's also in that Times of Grace side project of theirs, which is pretty cool. Good Christian, not metalcore. I don't know what to call that. New metal. I don't even know. The other guest not vocalist, guest guitarist is Jason Richardson. And he's known for being the guitarist in Born of Osiris and Chelsea Grin, but currently he's an official member of All That Remains.
Really?
So, yeah.
He's on Tightrope, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, we'll talk about that today.
Yep.
The third guest was JT Cavey. I think I'm saying his last name right. But he is known for being in Era. He's their harsh vocalist, and probably more predominantly to us, maybe, Texas in July. But only for their album Bloodwork. Before that was a different vocalist.
Yeah.
So I personally really enjoy Era and Texas in July. So I loved hearing him on that song.
Yeah.
And then the fourth guest is Spencer Chamberlain from a band probably no one's ever heard of.
I've never heard of him.
Yeah, the band's called like Under Oath. Has like a weird O on it. But that was a surprising guest feature. Not that he was on it, but what he did and how it was performed was very surprising. So can't wait to talk about that one.
So freaking good. I can't wait to talk about it.
So that's kind of all my details. I do think overall, like, this album it's kind of different than all their other ones because we have a lot of very long songs and they're very dynamic. And I mean, I think we got a lot to talk about today.
It's like, it is different. And I think you go from Guardians, the previous, most recently released album, to this, and it's like not a different band, but like different style. And we're always on August Burns Red, or people always are. They sound the same. I don't think there are some sounds that are similar, right? But there was so much more chugginess of Guardians to now it feels like, man, there's like atmospheric maybe.
Yeah.
Or even like black metal. Mm-hmm. Weird, different things, I think they're trying. So I think we have to like kind of a little bit put to rest this idea that August Burns Red puts out the same CD every 2 years.
I mean, I get like if you don't care about metalcore, you're gonna think it sounds all the same. If you listen to as much metalcore as the rest of us, I think you're gonna say, no, this is pushing the edge of metalcore a little bit. I will say there's a handful of songs that are just cookie cutter metalcore, and I will bring them up because they're probably my favorite songs.
Same, dude.
But yeah. So with that, I mean, you got anything else you want to add? Or are we ready to jump in?
I will say before we get going, like, Death Below, even though like I was pretty stoked on the release, it wasn't for some reason like a listen I had to have like in March. I was listening to something else, probably Turnstile or something, but I was listening to something else.
Most definitely Turnstile.
And I put on the singles, and I just wasn't like super like in it. I was like, it's good. But like giving this a chance, like it'll be interesting at the end to talk about album rank, but I think my rank will surprise you.
Now that you say that, I feel like it will, because maybe my rank will surprise you.
We'll see. Let's dive in, dude.
So the first song we're doing 6 today.
Yep.
And I hope you like them. We're also going to do bonus episode for all of our patrons of all the songs we don't talk about.
That's right.
So if we miss one that you really like, find a friend who's a patron and try to steal the bonus episode from them. Or just
buy us a cup of coffee, dude.
Yeah, 1 month. It's all you need, and you get all of our bonus stuff for all of eternity, and then you can cancel and be whatever. Anyway.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
First song we chose to do is The Cleansing.
Okay, so Gary, this is a little different. Gary, for those listening,
Me?
He chose all the songs we're going to talk about on the episode that were released, not the bonus. He said we're going to do these 6 because I was so indecisive.
Yeah,
and he
so
just said,
I just like highlighted like 6 songs I really like. I didn't even do any thought yet, thinking you'd be like, how about, and you're just like, okay. I'm like, oh crap, we have to do these 6.
yeah, and so we're doing it, and I just realized, like, as I'm making my notes for this, Gary picked the 2 8-minute long songs. Like, okay, like that. I mean, I get it, and which is, I do feel like that's also a little different for August Burns Red. You're used to getting 8-minute songs, and that's what we get with The Cleansing, and it is very dynamic. Okay, from the intro right away into like super high, fast tempo drums and a sound that I think is very black metal-ish.
What part?
If that makes sense. Just like the
like
and then
blast
like the
beats and
like kind of like the tremolo, like kind of like going back and forth, like picking instead of like chugs.
like building like a big ambience.
Yeah, like to me that sounds like what like typical black metal is, which is a different sound I think than what Guardians put out. And it's not just on The Cleansing, but that's what stood out right away for me. Was like, okay, Premonition before, right? It's kind of like this intro song that just leads into The Cleansing, and then boom, unique sound. You know, so I thought it was pretty cool actually.
So I know JB said in an interview that there's a lot of black metal pieces in it.
Maybe not full black metal, but like it feels like there's maybe some elements.
Oh yeah. But I will never say that.
You listen, maybe, I don't know, dude. That literally the drums, and I guess it's blast beats. To me, the drums are like, that's it.
I don't know. It's it. Like black metal to me is like, if there's any quality, it can't be black metal, because it has to be like distorted and I kind of said it on Discord today, talking with someone about why they like black metal, and I was like, this is why I like metalcore. And we're trying to figure each other out. But and basically I said that I thought black metal was very rounded around the edges. Nothing was ever in your face. It was very like one solid wavelength of noise, where I feel like metalcore is like super loud and fast and in your face, and then kind of quiet and pulled back, and then it's very, changes a lot.
Yeah,
I really like this song. I love the way Premonition builds into it, because, so I mean, you know me, I'm an album guy.
You are.
Right as soon as this thing came out, I wasn't super stoked because the singles didn't get me that excited.
Right.
Like, I was like, August Burns Red, it's like pizza. It's good. It doesn't really matter. But that premonition got me excited just on a new way of starting an album, because August Burns Red is usually like, fast song right away, get you attention. This was like slow and builds, and so it builds into this song. And I know they're originally designed or written to be like one piece, but a 10-minute song is probably a turnoff for Tyler. He wouldn't sign up.
And
on
most
that.
of the metalcore fan base.
But I like the song very much musically. It got my attention. This song specifically, I immediately, I think I texted you, Tyler, and was like, this song is amazing. You need to check out this album. Like, please be as stoked as I am.
Sure.
How about I jump into lyrics right now?
Dive, baby.
This one's tough. A lot of them are tough, I think. I think most of the band wrote a lot more equally. So it's not just like, Jake or Matt. And this song was written during COVID, and it was written by JB lyrically, well, musically probably too. But and I'll use his words, but he said that it talks about an unseen evil or force that takes over mankind and is destroying the planet. COVID.
Right.
Like, that's how I took it, right? Because of when it was written and that. But there are some pieces in here, some elements of lyricism that remind me of the Bible. And I don't know if they were intentional or not. And I don't know JB if he's a believer or not. He's not outspoken about it. He's not like Jake or Matt that are like, yes, we're Christians. He keeps to himself. No judgment here. But I really like that. I think this is one of the better written lyrics on the album. I like that. So this song talks about a silent foe that's in the intro track, right? There's a silent foe who's faceless and nameless, and a great evil, right? A bad guy that's watching the earth. And he's saying in the song lyrically from that guy's perspective that it's a world filled with sin that they're repeating over and over. Every generation is doing the same thing. And it says that he begged for relief. You begged for relief. And now I bring the cleansing. And it says, come now, watch the fall. And he's like, I'm going to end this, and like destruction's going to happen. And basically someone stands up and rallies the people to fight off the evil, whatever. It's kind of becomes an anthem, kind of song at the end of that. But yeah, are there any lyrics that stick out to you that hook you?
I think like the idea of this being about the pandemic is definitely true from like a zoomed out version, right? Like when you're in it, and like if you remember, I mean, obviously we remember, but the beginning of it, like just how like the world stopped, right? Things stopped for a while.
So much, like birthdays and family members in the hospital, and they're like, you can't say goodbye.
Right.
They're dying. They have to die alone. It's like, what is happening? Like,
just craziness. You couldn't even. Like, even thinking about it seems like fiction, because I talk to my students too, like just thinking like last year, like we were wearing masks every day, and we were cleaning, and we were separated, and then the year before we were at home doing school, and it was wild. And so the world stopped, and like you look at it and it's like all it took was that, and you can talk about the severity of COVID and all that stuff, and what's come to be, but like the idea that there's just something just waiting to stop us, and all of our little like arguments and our sinning like we continue to do, like that means nothing when the cleansing happens. You know what I mean? And so it's a pretty interesting piece. I do like the idea of like when this was written, there was probably like this idea of like, well, what if this brings us all together? Like, what if everybody like gets on the same page and we fight this thing, or whatever, like this idea. But that, I think like the very beginning there was like this idea of like, we're gonna do this.
Yeah, I think so too. We're gonna flatten the curve, everybody. Let's do this.
Right. And then like whatever political leaning you have, then there was like this like, well, this side's saying this, and now we're gonna take this side to the extreme. The other side is like, well, we can't let those guys win, so we got to do the other side. And it was like this push and pull, and like the divide, instead of getting like less, got bigger.
Yeah.
And here we are today.
I think you're getting into another song here.
I'm very close, yes. But I think it's a very similar theme. And so this idea of like, well, what if somebody, in a sense, like us as a people, like actually grew together? You think of like a zombie movie or whatever, they rise up and they fight this thing together, and they become stronger because of it. Don't know if that happened, but I think this is kind of a wishful thinking song at the very end.
Yeah. And I don't know if like this guy that stood up in the song to rally the people, who it was meant to be, just a random person who fought against the rage of this, evil foe.
Yeah.
But there's that part, the awesome like breakdown. I don't know if it's a breakdown or what, but
Yeah.
where he's, it like becomes very epic and very like symphonic, I want to say, but where he says from the throne to the thorns,
Yeah.
which is a reference to Jesus, I think. It's
Maybe,
about Jesus. I don't know, because throne, thorns, but then it gets very epic and builds from there. Christian imagery, whether intended or
For
not.
sure, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the song, there's so many pieces that I could talk about that I love, right? Like you were talking about those blast beats, and there's like a choir in the background that's like, ooh, ah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
at the 3-minute mark-ish around there. And, there's like these intense screaming at the beginning that just starts so shrill. And then there's cool guitar riffs with this chunky bass guitar in the background. That's like how they end it. And it's just so many different sounds and things going on this song. And I think it's a lot of fun. I think some metalcore fans might not like it because it dabbles in a lot of sounds, and like
Sure does.
It's kind of angry and gloomy. It gets happy and epic. It gets, and it ends on a very super happy outro. Like, why is that guy screaming? This is such a happy guitar tone.
You know why you like it? I know why you like it.
Why do I like it?
At like 5 minutes in, it's just Christmas Burns Red. Like that's
with
that's
that bass guitar, yeah.
And that little like the tone, the happy plucking guitar, man. Like the atmosphere.
I think it's too happy. It's more like a spring song.
Yeah,
Came
but it
out
has
in
that
March,
kind of has that feeling to it.
It's
and
an
you're
Easter
totally
song.
Right. It's very it's very happy to be screaming to. There's no angry riffage, which is what makes me think of the Christmas Burns Red, like because these are like happy Jesus is born songs,
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why I think you like it, and that's why I think I'm not like the biggest fan of it.
I think this is one of my top 3 songs on the album. I'll say number 3. It's my number 3 song.
Is that the best way to describe what it is? Like atmospheric, or like
I don't know.
You get like it's like a feeling. Like the music, the instruments are making
There's
you
a
feel
lot of
a certain
sounds,
way.
right? Yeah. Like, metalcore is very good at like stopping guitar notes, like chugga chugga chugga, thud thud, dun dun, whatever, right? It doesn't carry a lot of symphony, like like musical notes and stuff like that. So I think they do a lot of stuff like that. Plus, there's always a guitar and playing, always doodling something, always.
that's a great descriptor. It is doodling.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think there is a fan base of that comes from the flurries on August Burns Red Christmas stuff, or comes from like they've done that in other albums that maybe aren't my favorite, but there is a fan group that likes it.
Yeah, they do it on like Rescue and Restore.
Yes, a lot,
and on the album we did an episode on, Leveler, thank you. Where they kind of like dabble in these other genres, like it's like all of a sudden there's a banjo, or here's like some brass
Spanish
instruments,
guitar,
or Spanish guitar stuff, or we're gonna go acoustic, and they kind of do that, but I think they keep it metal the whole way,
right,
on this one. But anyway, I think that's a lot of talking about a 7-minute song, and
7 minutes.
There's so much in it too, and I think that's part of the problem is, unless you're paying attention to the whole 7 minutes and taking notes about everything you're hearing, like it's a lot to take in, and maybe you only pay attention to the chorus. Come now, watch the fall, and you're like, that's all I remember from the cleansing. It was all right. Next song, and I think it's very easy because of the speed of the song, like just the tempo. Everything happens so fast. Maybe people miss out on these really cool parts that are only 20 seconds long.
Right. And you got to do yourself a favor and have good headphones and listen to it, not just in your car, or not just on your speakers at work. Like, you got to make sure you have good headphones because there's a lot of sounds.
Yeah. And the other thing I like, right? I'm an album guy, so I'm going to say this like a bunch of times. Every song builds into the next one like it's one continuous song, the whole album.
Right.
And like literally the way this one ends is like it builds into Ancestry, and like you don't even know that it happens. You're just like, oh, okay, here we go. And oh, it's actually the next song. Like you don't really know until you're looking at the track name and you're like, what? We changed songs?
Yeah, I like that a lot too.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like that's always been the case with August Burns Red.
No, I don't think so.
And it is interesting though, because like thematically, I don't think there's some themes that are similar throughout, but this isn't a concept album, right? This isn't like some like huge thing like we saw with Haste the Day in our previous episode, right? This isn't like this whole story of the Wolf King, there are some common themes because they're writing about the pandemic in some of these songs, but others are just not.
Yeah.
Cool, let's move on to the next song we chose, which is Tightrope.
So this song, Tightrope.
Yup.
Lyrically, it's about taking on too much, not setting boundaries, and struggling with the balance between work and family. Honestly, one of my least favorite songs. I'm surprised I picked it. I truly am. I mean, I do know why I picked it, because musically, it's just a ton of fun. It's just typical August Burns Red metalcore.
Yes.
Like I think if you heard this, it'd probably remind you a lot of their previous albums more recently. Just a lot of that, Jake Lure's like kind of talk shouting and then crazy guitar riffs, and but also Jason Richardson being featured. Like that guitar solo that he just rips out of there is just super fun.
For sure, I think that sticks out the most to me is like the guitar solo doesn't like. It is not that it doesn't fit. It's just that it's totally different than August Burns Red guitar solos, and like you said, it shreds. I'm not a solo guy, but I mean it's cool.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the song really hits its stride, and that might be like my problem with it. I didn't start to enjoy it until like halfway through. So after that guitar solo, when it comes out and like into that I want to say a chorus or something, but just from that point on, you're just like, I get this song,
right?
This song is so good now.
That's that guitar that's just like that kind of chuggy, like you're going with it, you're bobbing your head, But for me, like I like the song because it's a typical August Burns Red metalcore song, right? And we're not going to say that a lot about the rest of the songs. Like I don't.
Yeah,
think so.
Totally, sure, yeah. You're not going to say that a lot.
And like this not necessarily could be on every album, but like maybe it could. Like just musically, it's very August Burns Red. Lyrically, I do think like this might make it one of my favorite songs.
Oh, really?
I for whatever reason was absolutely drawn to these lyrics, and the way that Jake Lures is able to scream certain things, I think compared to other vocalists, like the way he just does it, I don't know, it makes it seem like it's more meaningful. right? There's just something to, I think, like Mariana's Trench and other songs that like mean a ton to me. Like the way he screams it, I don't, I can't even really describe it, but like my favorite idea is this Tightrope, you know, and like you said, I think it was Brent, their other guitarist, other than JB. I think Brent wrote this. I think that's what it said.
Yeah, I think so.
And so he's writing these lyrics, but this tightrope, like you said, is this balance between like work life and family. And I can only imagine for a band, like being on the road, a band like August Burns Red that tours consistently,
Yeah,
constantly,
most of the year. Yeah,
like they're the reason we've seen them 7 times or whatever is because they're always touring.
yep.
You know, and so that takes a toll, I'm sure, as you get older. Like when you're 17 and you start a band, that's awesome. When you're 21, that's awesome. You get married and start having kids, not so awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, and so like this, maybe like feeling like missing out, like on your family. I think like the lyrics, it says, my absence was always my escape. I wasn't in the best place. You're owed memories I can't restore, not stories of wayfare and folklore. Like all those memories that you should have had, but I was gone. Like I can never restore those. And I missed all those. Maybe the first time like our kid crawled or our kid, you know, said dada or whatever. And you don't deserve the stories of the
touring and like you won't believe what happened on the bus.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and so I feel like that in my life too, like this idea, like, dude, I'm a busy guy. I'm a yes guy. You know, you're one of your favorite movies, Yes Man?
Yep.
Like that's me, dude. And I don't even have like a curse on me. You know, like people ask me at work to do something. I'm like, yes, sounds great. And all of a sudden, like today, this is my life today, for example. So I get up at like 6 and I go to work and I work until 2:20 when the bell rings. And then at 2:30 I go to football practice. And then at 5:30 I'm done with football practice. And then I had a meeting in the district office for naming our gym at 6 o'clock. And then I got home at like 7. You know what I mean? And I haven't even seen my kids, and now it's bedtime. Yeah. You know? And so, like, although things that I'm doing in my life are, like, important, and I think they're super important, it's similar. I'm like, man, I just spent an entire day where I saw my kids for, like, maybe 2 hours.
Crazy.
That's in some ways, not right. You know, and it makes you think, you know? And so I can totally understand where he's coming from. And I think a lot of people are like me, right? Where work in certain times of your life, like, takes over. And your family has to pay the price.
Yeah, and you're kind of stuck between the two, right? Out on a tightrope. And it's like, you can't slip. You can't mess up.
Yeah.
Because you're going to fall. And you're going to mess up one of the other two sides and stuff. You know, there's that saying, like, your kids are never going to remember, you know, looking back on your childhood or their childhood or whatever, the extra work you put in at your job. They're not going to remember that. Yeah. And neither is your boss. Neither is your company. No one is going to remember, boy, Gary put in 70 hours that one week. Good for him. Right. But they will remember, your kids will remember those nights where you had to work late and they didn't get to see you and they had to go to bed. Yes. And, you know, that I don't know who said that or where that saying's from, but yeah, it hits me a lot because, you know, I'm a salary guy and they're like, you know, get your work done when you get it done. And sometimes I got to work a lot to get my work done. Right.
And as you get older, you get more responsibilities. I mean, that's just what it comes down to, too.
Yeah.
Right? Like, taking on a ton of workload isn't a big deal when you're not married with kids.
Yeah, when it's like, you got to take your kid to Taekwondo tonight at 4, and it's like, I have a meeting at 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I said I would do this. Oh, no. Like, how are we going to manage this? Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, it talks about that, too. Later in the song, it says, I had taken on too much. It took over me. Longing for what I had when I was young. My responsibilities are choking me. Like, this idea of, like, when you're younger, it's so much easier. And I think about, like, us in college, like, how easy it was, man. Like we didn't think it was easy, but
We're
like,
always
we had
complaining about how like we're
nothing.
so busy that we don't have time. Like, yeah.
We had no responsibilities, dude, other than our classes, which was like 3 hours a day. You know? And so it's just it's so interesting. And so I think you're right. And I think this is one of those where you can listen to it and like you just gotta put it in check. Like you gotta be I have to be able to say no sometimes. Like as a dad, I'm gonna be there for my kid, you know? And yes, it's important to make money and support your kid, but like you said, they're not gonna remember me working until 7 p.m. every night.
Yeah.
So here's my thought. As of late, I've been busy with all this stuff, but Father's Day is this Sunday. So what I'm doing, like they asked me, like, what do you want for Father's Day? I said, I want to go to Chuck E. Cheese with you guys, and I want to play games with you for like 2 hours.
You have to watch me play at Chuck
No,
E.
I just
Cheese.
want to play with. I want to play with you guys, like, you know, shoot hoops and do skee ball and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think like that's something, like the idea of like we're gonna do something that hopefully they're like, well, that one time we went Father's Day for Chuck E. Cheese, that was awesome, you know.
Yeah.
Doing those things is like is the real balancing act. Like, I don't know. It shouldn't be a tightrope though, right? You should always you should make time for your family. That should be the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's why I like the song, because I can definitely relate. Do you like it better now?
My problem, I think, was just like lyrically and the way it rolled didn't match the way my brain thinks August Burns Red normally does. So
yeah.
like the way it went just felt very off tempo, or I don't know, almost unexpected, right?
Sure.
Like, this is an interesting song. Is it like, I don't know. I mean, sure, I appreciate the lyrics a little more because I didn't fully relate to them. So sure, fine.
Yes.
You caused me to like the song a little more. Credit for Tyler.
All right, let's do the next song then.
What's the next song?
Fool's Gold in a Bear Trap. Okay, so Fool's Gold in a Bear Trap is a song that I wasn't expecting you to pick at all. It feels like a transition song, right? But there is some cool elements to it. Like
It's like 3 minutes long. That's not.
It is.
That's not a transition song. That's a normal song.
compared to what we've been going over, maybe. But the intro is so long, though, right? This like non-lyric intro is super long. It's that atmospheric, like setting the tone, like things are kind of weary or eerie feeling. But then when the lyrics do come in eventually, and that bass is just like delicious, like
Yeah.
I do really, really like it. I think the bass in this album is definitely featured more in certain areas, and maybe that comes with the musical space and this atmospheric type of instrumentation they were going for. But I really, really like the sound of the bass and Jake screaming.
This song always sticks out to me whenever I listen to the album, because when they come in,
Yeah.
it just takes all of your attention.
Yep.
And you have to be like, wait, what? I just love, so the long build, right? It's probably a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Slowly getting louder, slowly adding another instrument here and there, right? But there's a part, if you have good headphones, you'll hear it, where he very quietly, someone whispers, "There is a," and then they just scream and blast beats go, and he screams "world," and it goes nuts, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, whoa, what is happening? Where am I? And so it just very snaps you out of this like quiet thing, and I think that's the bear trap part of the song.
Right. It got you.
But lyrically, it's just a song that's like a warning that the world is hard. Like, it's rough out there, and no one's out there to do you any favors. Talks about like getting backstabbed. So it's kind of just like I don't know, a shock kind of song. But it definitely builds into Backfire, musically, I guess lyrically too. And that transition that it does to that and straight into Backfire is so good. Like, you don't even notice it happens. But yeah, I mean, it's great. What's not to like, Tyler?
I mean, yes. It's almost like we don't do it justice by not doing Backfire. Like, we should have just done the two as a one combo, right? But maybe that's what the bonus episode's for. Like, you listen to this and listen to Fool's Gold, and then you get on Patreon and you listen to Backfire.
Yeah, we'll catch you up on
I think the whole listening base is like, oh, they're doing Backfire, and we're not going to do Backfire. Like, that's a pretty popular song.
Dude, we've skipped the 2 singles.
We have. That
Backfire and Ancestry so far. So, I guess it's clickbait, right?
Maybe. Ooh, that's interesting. No, I do like this song. I really do. And I think, like, when it does come in, it's that bear trap and the blast beats and I'm putting quotations up because Gary doesn't like it, black metal, like, feel. Like, I really like that, and I think it's good, and I love the warning, the idea of, like, I think it's the ending lyrics, actually. It says, don't make significant decisions based on the path of least resistance. Like, this idea of, like, the easy way out is not the right way. You know, never take that way. If you're just going to go, like, trying to get the fool's gold, it's not even real gold in a bear trap. Like, you're going to lose a leg, dude.
Yeah,
you know
I like
that
line. You know, line them up, watch the legs snap one by one. Yeah.
Dude, and if you've ever seen a bear trap, like, those things are, and you just, like, feel it, even if it's not set, it's like, dude, this thing is...
Just setting it.
This will jack you up. I mean, it's obviously meant for a bear, so yeah, it's going to jack your leg up, dude. You know, and it's like this warning, and I try to live by this idea of, like, if you do, like, what you love, you'll love what you do. Famous quote by the guy that...
If you can't do, teach.
Yes. Famous quote by Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451, right? Like, if you can find something that you love to do, like, you'll never work a day in your life. Like, super cheesy, whatever. But, like, I think there's something to that, right? Like, you might not make the most money or whatever, but if you find a passion that you actually love, like, your life will feel like it's worth living in some ways, right? Like, you're passionate, you're fulfilling, you're doing all these things.
I'm excited to see how this ties into being a bear trap or something. Like,
it's this idea of, like, so many people just want to take, like, well, I'm going to do this because it makes more money, or I'm going to do this because this is, like, the easy
path
way.
Of least resistance.
This is the least resistance. I'm going to
you.
go do this instead of taking a risk and doing something I actually like, right? And then you're just working for the weekends, and then you're working and goes back to Tightrope, and you're working a bunch of hours because you make a ton of money being, I don't know, a pediatrician or something, and you hate kids.
Host to an awesome podcast.
Right. Like, it's just, to me, it's like, that is scary because it's really easy to go on the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, obviously. And it's probably not the best thing for you in your life.
Yeah.
So that's the bear trap. And
dude, I was like, is he going to talk about how he really wants to build bear traps?
And I'm back at it. Yeah, bear traps are my passion. I should have gone into bear trap making.
Yeah. Instead, you're a teacher. So I think with that, we can move on to the next song. And I will preface this. This is my favorite song on the album. And the song is Revival.
That is it. The darkness has stricken me.
So I've said this is my favorite song on the album, and I think it is because it's like back to their roots. Like, this is the best of August Burns Red, like what they do here. And before I get into that, I mean, lyrically too, it's something that's relatable to a lot of people. It's like getting out of rock bottom, surviving and conquering your struggles and making yourself better, right? To stop falling like this. And I don't know, just for me, it's like that guitar tone. Like,
100%.
Like, I don't know, not even like a 1 minute in this, like, I don't know, like one of those like air siren sounding guitar tones. It's kind of like just a laser. And with the way Jake holds out his screams and draws them out, it's just like, oh man, this is heavy. I am pumped. It makes you make a face. Those guitar tones are just so good.
I totally agree. I think just from the start, the intro riff just gets you going, right? It's just like high flying, like metalcore at its finest. And that's what I wrote. Like, this is metalcore at its finest. 3 exclamation points.
Oh,
because
no.
Because it really is, right? There's like so much to this. And it's for sure, for me too, Gary, this is my favorite song on the entire album. And I don't know, though, if it is like just a typical August Burns Red song, though. Like, it's good metal, it's great metalcore, but I don't know if it's like, this is August Burns Red. I think there's a lot of different elements. Like, even that intro riff, like, that's not a typical August Burns Red intro riff.
I don't know. Like, I think back to like Messengers or Constellations.
No
like, that's
way.
the kind of vibe I get on this.
Like, that intro reminds me of like, I can't even like think of it, like some
Phineas?
like Disturbed or something.
What?
Dude, yeah, I don't like not even like real like our scene of metalcore. Like, it's like an interesting like,
Is it just the riff? Is it the tone? Like,
I think it's both.
I don't know, dude.
Yeah, listen to it right now. I'm going to listen to it right now. I'll tell you who it is. Okay, here we go. Oh, for sure. Okay, like, I get, like, once it stops and, like, pauses, it's like a Wage War feel. But, like, I don't know, man. There's just, like, mainstream-ish metal riff, but then it gets into, like, just, like, sweet, awesome, stank face, like, chugginess later on, you know? And I think it's really good, but to me, it's not, like, what we've got from August Burns Red in the past.
I think that one thing that's really different is how low Jake screams in it.
There is that too.
And he's like super low with that high guitar that's like wee wee wee.
Oh yeah, I love
just,
that.
You
too.
know. And I think we said Norma Jean kind of had that tone and it sounded like pissed off bees.
Yeah.
Lasers, whatever, you know. It's great. I love the part of the song that I just know in the mosh pit's gonna get nuts when he says, "Teach me to see in the night."
Yeah.
And it's just this chunky,
Dude.
chunky. Like, I just felt elbows getting thrown at me.
Yes.
And I was alone in the room. I'm like, get off of me, you know, already. And there's several lines in here that just really stick out. I really like I gave terror a face, but now it's filled with fractures. The proof isn't on my fist.
Yeah.
And, you know, just fighting his demons, right? Beating up the stuff that is terrorizing him. But I don't know. There's some fun imagery like that too. And this was written by Jake, and I feel like those are the songs that lyrically I connect with more.
Sure.
I don't know. But yeah. How about the breakdown?
I mean, it's great. I think for me, like, my favorite part is just like you said, the "teach me to see in the night," and like that is just like when you hear that anywhere, you have to literally like just like bite your lip and be like, you know, like,
Dude,
just,
I
like,
took
get
my car and I
angry.
just rammed the car next to me. I'm like, let's go. Bam.
Yeah, it's like you automatically get a shot of adrenaline and you're ready to go. I like this song so much because it is still versatile. Like, it does have the kind of go back down, come back up. And part of it is, I think, thematically with the lyrics, this idea of like hitting absolute rock bottom, not just like some problems in your life, right? Not just like, oh man, this is tough right now. we're going through money issues, we're having some temporary issues. This is like absolute rock bottom.
Yeah, and choosing to defeat it and survive and come out, right? Instead of just accepting this is where I'm at.
And so like I think this goes along kind of with what Jake, his passion, his heart support kind of ministry that he does.
Yeah. Yep.
There's just a lot of like people that I think can relate to this, that feel just like there's no hope, right? When you hit that rock bottom, how do you see an exit?
Yeah.
And so I think this is part of like where he finds like Jake, through this like comeback, as we'll talk about, found like a voice, how he can help, how he can share the gospel and show that there is a hope. I just recently hung out with a buddy from college over the weekend, and he talked that he actually wrote in and to Heart Support, and they talked on about him on there and read his question and stuff. And so like even people in my life have been affected by that positively. So I think that's awesome, and it speaks to the things that Jake is doing and that August Burns Red has done for now 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of that. This is like an anthem song for people.
Yeah.
To do that. You know, and like, so there's like this bridge in the song where the guitar kind of stays the same, but the tone totally changes and becomes more doodly, more noodly.
Yeah.
Doodly-doo, doodly-doo. And that's like how it builds into this breakdown when he's like, this is only the start of my comeback.
Yeah.
Boom, big breakdown. But that outro bridge after that breakdown is like, it's like that bridge guitar riff, but it's in the outro where he's just like screaming, I just want to feel something. I just want to feel feelings. I just want to feel anything.
Right.
And like the way that he does that screaming, and like with the music that's like very like, I don't know, hopeful. Like it makes you feel like, you know, we can come out of this. And just the way the song is so brutal at the beginning and comes out so hopeful. It's a super fun song. And despite what you think, I'm still saying that this is like August Burns Red. Their best songs are this kind of structured.
Yeah, I can feel that. I do think like too, and you said this at the very beginning, like the songs that Jake writes, like we identify with maybe more, and it is probably because he's a lot of times he's writing from his heart, and he is writing in a Christian perspective. And I think we see that in a lot of his lyrics, right? And not saying like other band members aren't. I did watch this one interview that Matt Greiner gave, and he said he wrote one lyric for this entire album.
Oh?
And it was on Reckoning, excuse me.
Oh, I can't wait to know what it is.
Yeah. One lyric, and that's it.
That's crazy.
And which he said was
a lot.
Yeah, which he said was very different because he usually writes a ton. So most of it was Jake and Brent.
I thought JB and Brent wrote most.
Lyrically, it was mostly Brent and Jake, it sounds like. From Matt's interview.
Cool.
And maybe JB wrote some too, but...
Well, I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because like, it's like, oh, who wrote this song? Well, I did, and this person did. It's like, oh, well, there's a lot more than just lyrics that get written. Right?
True, right. And it's like the majority. So I think there's also this like idea of like probably working together on it and stuff. And
yeah, in studio and refining. Yeah.
You got my two favorite songs on here, and we've talked about the first one.
I already know what the second one is, so that's cool.
Maybe.
So actually, my second favorite song we're not talking about. Or no, we are talking about. And I'm stoked for it. So that's the next song we're going to do, right?
Here's what happened, guys. I'm going to preface this. Gary threw me a curveball. He's like, wait, we're not doing Dark Divide? You're the one that highlighted this stuff, man. And
like
sent
a
it to
week
me.
ago.
And so we were supposed to do The Abyss on this episode, but we're now doing Dark Divide for Gary, and The Abyss will be on our bonus.
Yeah.
So without further ado,
and sorry for those that wanted to hear The Abyss.
True.
But
you can still hear it. But here we're moving on. The next song, Dark Divide.
right, Dark Divide. I'm glad we squeezed this one in because I didn't know how much I liked it until I wrote my notes on it.
Ooh.
But, lyrically, nothing too crazy. Division of people. People are fighting. No one's finding common ground. Why can't we all get along, coexist? There's one line that I kind of chuckle at, and I don't like it because it's so obvious. When he says, walk with your enemy and you'll see you're on the same path. It's like, well, yeah, you're walking.
Stop.
Look at your feet.
That's the point, dude.
But
no, dude, that's so deeper because like we look at it and we like look at the other side of the aisle of whatever you believe, and you're like, oh my gosh, country's going down, right? And it's like you really look at it and there's not as much separation as you would like to think. Like that's
I get the metaphor. I just mean if you take it literally,
absolutely,
it's like you get on a boat with another person and you see you're sailing together. It's like, well, you think.
Okay.
Anyway, my mind is over analytical. But besides that, like, this is probably my second favorite song, and I think it's all because of the music. I love that guitar harmonic that's going on.
So many harmonics.
So cool. It's like a grungy like doodly doo of guitar riffs. You don't like my doodly doo?
It brings it back to like 2000s new metal. Like everyone was doing harmonics back then, and now not as much, right? And so it's interesting to have a song just like packed full of them.
Well, yeah, and I think as soon as you do that, someone remembers another song another band did, and they're like,
right.
Oh, you sound like these. Oh, you're ripping off, these guys. And I've heard their accusations from this song with various bands. I don't care. I like it. But yeah, I think this is totally a like mosh pit song.
For sure.
I think it was, like on the last album on Guardians, they had that one song, Blood Letter. There it is. That was totally a mosh pit song, right? And I think this one is too, just because it's like there's like lines that are, we've been trading blows, now everybody's bloody.
Yeah,
we're ready to go. But yeah, I there's so much about this. So there's a song we didn't talk about right before this. It builds into it, Sevink. We'll talk about it more on our bonus episode. But that song, I think that whole song is in this song as the bridge.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it's literally, so when the bridge comes in, you get like it's like that same like electronic sounding. You kind of hear someone talking robotically. Yeah. But the only difference is there's a drum in this version, right? That's just like tick, 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 like we're gonna go. But I love the way that it kind of calls back to that, to pull it in.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, I think Sevink and Dark Divide, if that's even how you say it. Oh my gosh. Sevink is knives backwards.
There you go.
So anyway.
That's an Easter egg, bro. We just figured it out.
Yo! I was like, that's such a weird word. What could it mean? So if you listen to the two together, I feel like it's such a better experience than just jumping into Dark Divide.
Yes,
though I love Dark Divide.
Absolutely.
And the way it ties in with that bridge, I think, is just super cool. And it kind of like brings you back to the beginning and resets you, because out of that bridge is like the same beginning of this song with those cool guitar harmonics, and you're like, yes, we're doing it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there's a lot of cool lyrics and imagery about like, people fighting and not getting along. Burning bridges we're halfway across. This is like up my alley, right? It's that kind of song, and I don't know who wrote this one, but
I think Burning Bridges, like at some point, like you just have to, if you're a metalcore band, you have to say that lyric.
You have to talk about
right.
I
think okay, obviously Haste Today, Day to Remember. You never know how many bridges you burn.
I think Bring Me the Horizon did it.
And now August Burns Red is beautiful. It's a beautiful lyric. For me, like I do like it is a mosh pit song, but like, man, like this lyrical theme, like that's what gets me like going, man. Like I am 100% in the alley of like this like divide we have, not just politically or whatever, and not just in the United States, but like everywhere, is like nobody can listen to another person's opinion that they don't agree with and not get pissed off. Like,
so you're like that monkey from Planet of the Apes. Can't we all just get along?
No, we don't have to get along, but we don't have to be absolute idiots. Like, like we look at it, and if one person has an opinion and you just literally like all of a sudden, like I see this all the time, like even especially in the church, like there are people that truthfully believe, and maybe it's Gary, I don't know. There are people that believe like you can't be a Democrat and be a Christian. Like there's people that believe that, like absolutely, that's it, right? Without even hearing out a reason why somebody would want to vote a different way, or maybe even looking at like their walking in their shoes, like empathy. It's just, well, looks like you're a baby killer, not a Christian, and it's like, man, and like, it's just crazy how we have this like set, and then the vice versa, right? Like you have people that look at a Republican or whatever, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're a Republican, how can you be a Christian? You're automatically a racist. People like just believe those things.
Yeah.
When it's like, man, there's no truth in that. Doesn't mean like that's what you are. We just automatically pick these sides. There's this divide between us, and you are this, and you're all this.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, I think it's human nature to build boxes and put people in them. Like,
yes,
not literally people, but just stuffing people in boxes. But like, you're like, okay, like this is a Christian. Here's my box.
Right.
And if you're not in this box, if you don't match these four walls, you're going to go in a different box.
Yeah.
And like you have to go in one, you can't go in two.
Right. There's no middle ground.
Yeah, and I mean you could say this about anything, right? It doesn't have to be like politics or religion, or like it could just be music, right? Sure. That band's not metalcore.
Yeah.
They did guitar harmonics. That's rock.
Yeah.
Like it could be anything, but it's just, I feel like that's just something humans do. We define something, and people, you hear one detail about their life or one decision, I voted Democrat. Boom. You're a Democrat in my box of definition. Therefore, like you are all kinds of evil, and yeah, which you are, Tyler. I mean,
for sure,
you are all kinds of evil.
But like you look at it too, and I agree. It has been that way, but like it just from the perspective of just looking at our lives, like it just is getting deeper and deeper, and the divide is just growing. Is what I see. Is what I like. I look at it and it's like, man, it wasn't like this 10 years ago. Man, it wasn't like this 15 years ago or whatever. It was different, right? There wasn't like this huge divide. I mean, that's I think the best way to put it. And it's like, man, like if we could just figure out some things that we can all agree upon, then life would be better for so many more people. But we can't.
I don't think it's getting deeper. I don't think it's getting worse. I think it's always been like this. It's just we're getting older. We're experiencing life more. We see scenarios arise or situations come up, and we're in arguments and debates with people where we see it, and it's like, oh, the whole world's getting worse. Remember when we were in elementary school and we just argued about what Pokemon was better?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the world's getting necessarily worse, right? But I think people are absolutely looking at that. Like, dude, I mean, this happens, man. It's like I have it's a person that...
You have a person. So far,
yeah, it's hard to say. So this person came up to me, and we're both Christians, and he knows that I'm a teacher, and he's just so like was so serious on this, was like asking me, and he said, "Do you guys have litter boxes in your classrooms?" Like so serious, because he heard it somewhere, right?
Like for
saw
cats?
It somewhere. Litter boxes for kids that identify as cats or animals, right? Like that was his idea. Okay. And I laughed at first. Like I literally like laughed because I thought he was joking.
And he's like straight faced, like
saw his face, and boom, it's just straight faced. I'm like, no, we don't. Like, I mean, it's like that's what people see, and all of a sudden they're like, I will, they hear this one thing, and then it's boom, it's like this divide. Like,
well, and it has to be truth too, right? If it's against what they believe. Right. It's like, here's this bad thing about people that you don't agree with. And like, that's true.
Right.
Like you hear about it all the time. Like,
and part of it too isn't necessarily like the fault of the people, but like the media that we consume is tailored to what we want to hear, right? Or what we don't like of the other side. And so all of a sudden, like you're getting all this, and I mean, that gets clicks, that gets shares, that gets views, that all that stuff. And so you see that one school happened to one school somewhere, it's like, oh my God, it's all over the United States.
Yeah.
Right? Or the other way, like,
It doesn't help that the media portrays it that way.
Right.
Schools are now doing this. It's singular. School now did that.
right.
The teacher doesn't work there anymore.
Well, and like the big thing too, like, and this is part of just like you gotta just turn it off. Like sometimes the news, because like if you just consume it, you think like every city in the United States is literally just gunfights. You know, like I always tell the story of this one interview I saw, and it was like these people that were from China, and they were going to ask if they wanted to visit the United States, and like what they've seen, that's been portrayed in the United States. They were scared. But I can't go to the United States because like I'm going to die in, I'm going to get shot up, you know, because all they see is gunfights. And it's like, well, I mean, are there shootings? Yeah, but like it's not. You can walk down the streets in big cities, and you're not just going to get like.
You could live your
taken
whole
out.
life and not ever see or hear one.
Right. Like it's just what's being portrayed. And so obviously like the portrayal of media is lending itself to this huge divide. And maybe that's part of it too, is maybe it feels like the divide is getting bigger because we have so many ways now to consume news or media.
Well, yeah. It's not, just any information at all. Yeah.
Right or wrong, you know, truth or fiction. It's like we can see anything.
So I think, kind of on the same topic, same, thread of the song of division and not getting along. I mean, I grew up in the Christian metal scene, and there's like, lately there's been all this, like, these bands that have been stepping away. Right. And some of them are just like, no, we're still Christians. We just aren't doing Christian songs anymore. Yeah. We don't want to be identified that way, right? Because it feels weird to be like, yeah, we're a Christian band. Your song's about, fighting and division or whatever, and not Christian, right?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you have people who are, I'm not a Christian anymore. I've toured my whole life. I don't have a church family. I don't have any, anyway. And so you see these people, I'm bringing up Striper now, who post on these Facebook groups and stuff that I'm in that are like, Striper is not a Christian band anymore because they played at a bar and a non-Christian band opened for them. And it's like, where are they supposed to play? Like, at churches? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's like you have this expectation now that they did this, they failed you and they can't be a Christian anymore. And it's like, and I read the comments and they're all over the place.
Dude.
Right?
Yes,
You got
yes.
the few that they are sane. These are normal people. They have excellent viewpoints with like 2 likes. Then you have the wild, crazy overreactors or the bandwagoners that just have tons of reactions.
Yeah.
And they're way at the top. And it's like, yikes, this looks so bad. Like a non-Christian looking at this conversation, oh boy.
Yeah, dude.
It's embarrassing. And like, I'm glad no one is like looking at those things and they might be and being like, this is what Christians are like. And it's like many people were just like me and scrolled through that and reacted the same way. Probably started typing something 100 times, delete, and just moved on. Right? Don't even post anything. It's not worth the energy.
Yeah.
Like, anyway.
I think it's a good point. And I saw this actually really recently too with Wolves at the Gate, right? So they cover a 21
they covered
Pilots
Heathens.
song,
yeah.
right? And all of a sudden people are like, they're not Christian anymore. It's like, dude, it's a cover song. And when did anyone ever have to, like, when did they say we're only going to do Christian music? Like, it's so crazy to me that people can just pull out this, like you said, man, it's a box. Like, Wolves at the Gate is in this box. If they do anything different, then they're dead to me. Or whatever, and it's like, man,
That's crazy.
You got to be kidding me! Like,
Yeah,
and I
Wolves
think
at the
there's
Gate. If you guys hear this, I really liked the song.
Yeah,
I
it's good.
appreciate it. You did a cover EP before.
Yes,
Do another one. I'd love to hear it.
and it's funny because they did that so long ago, and most, if not all, most of those, I think there were some, aren't even Christian songs either.
Yeah,
So like, it's not like they haven't done it before.
yeah.
Gosh, and it's just like that too, man. It's just like this frustrating piece of like,
It's like they think that our brothers in Christ lost their salvation because they covered a radio popular
Yeah.
song.
And then we wonder why these bands or these members in bands sometimes get fed up with Christian fans.
Yeah.
We wonder why, because
They're
literally
berated by the secular world for being Christians.
Yep.
They're berated by Christians for not living up to their expectations,
Not
putting the
being
band
Christian
up on
enough.
a pedestal, given unrealistic expectations on how to be a human, and everyone's got their eye on everything they do. Every social media post, like, it's just unreal. Like, people treat these people like if they sin, they're not a Christian. And I'm not saying that drinking is a sin or covering a song is a sin. I'm not saying that at all.
It's just
Anyway.
it's weird. Like, I don't know. Like, even us, dude. Like, we're not gonna cuss on this podcast. But like,
Yeah, we
also-
normally swear like sailors.
No, we
every day.
don't. But like, I think there's that feeling of it. Like, for me, sometimes like, I can't do that. Like, if I do that, people are just gonna think that I'm not a Christian if I say a bad word, which like obviously that is nothing to do with your salvation, you know. But you're put into a box, and it's like sometimes that's not okay.
Yeah, and I get that, like, you know, so a lot of people will look at a new band and go, I wonder if they're Christian. Not even look at the lyrics. They'll see a song with explicit and go,
Right.
not a Christian.
Yeah.
Right, boom, they're not. Next band, right? Like, automatically putting labels on them just because of that. And I get it, right? If you truly are a Christian band where your lyrics are glorifying Christ, you probably don't have dark or foul or offensive language.
What about
Right.
King's Kaleidoscope?
That's different. But you get like what I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
is I mean, it's an easy way to set apart. But I think people, just because they're Christians, you know, and they put out their music, they immediately go like, oh, that they must be a Christian band, so it must be worship music. And then they find out that the lyrics aren't that Christian. They're maybe worldly. Maybe they're struggling with something that, you know, whatever, and they want to vent about it on a song. And people go, oh, you can't use music as an outlet to, you know, try to improve your mental health or whatever. But I don't know. I'm on a soapbox, and I don't even know where I'm going with it.
And I think the transition back into this too, like August Burns Red is a great example of most of their stuff is not, I would say, most of their songs are not like Christian, or definitely not explicitly Christian.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And
I wouldn't even call them a Christian band. But
No
I see
way.
them on like all these Christian things.
Yeah.
Like playlists. They're on like Radio U and stuff. And like just a lot of Christian things. And I don't think they've had a real Christian song. Like maybe the last song on this album, the one we'll do next, is Christian.
yeah.
We'll see when we dig into lyrics and stuff. And
And another thing, like, I think about too, like, okay, so you have, you know, a couple members or a few members in this band that are Christian, right? Members in a band. In Under Oath specifically, which is interesting, recently it was just said there's still members of Under Oath, a few, that are still Christian.
yeah, they're keyboardist,
Right.
dude.
They're members of the Devil Wears Prada that are Christian. So it's not like they're not there.
yeah.
But we take like an August Burns Red and say, well, they don't cuss. So, I mean, obviously that they're Christian.
But it's amazing, like, you look at the backlash they get for just saying, so look back at the past, like, 10 years, right? All the bands that have stepped back and said, we're not a Christian band anymore.
Yeah.
They got some bad backlash in the Christian community, but the secular community didn't care.
Right.
And then, you know, 2 albums later, they're, like, accepted by the Christian, you know, the some Christians and secular.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's the really harsh, judgmental people that are like, you said you're a Christian, but you wrote a song like this. You said you're a Christian, but I saw you on tour doing this.
Right.
You know, and it's like, I feel like there's just so much pressure and expectations put on them. And if they could just step away, if they could shed that responsibility that they did not choose, right, then things would be easier for them. Life would get better. And I feel like that's just the route people are going now.
I think so. I think that's a great point. And is it wrong? Like, what are, like, it's interesting because our podcast is literally covering heavy music in the Christian scene, right? Like,
Yeah.
we struggle with this all the time. Like, what is that? Right? Like, because we've done multiple episodes on bands that have explicitly said they're not Christian bands anymore. Or never were.
Yep.
And so, like, what is it? You know, is it just if there's Christians in a band that's the Christian scene? Or is it something more? I mean, I don't even know, and I'm just talking at this point, but it's like, I don't know if we're ever going to get a point to where, like, you have bands like For Today that are breaking into the quotations mainstream of the genre. Like, I don't know if we're going to have that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we will again. I think there's definitely a difference, right? And we've talked about this on other episodes, so we're sorry for those that have listened to every episode and they're like, you guys,
no, they like
stop.
it. I think it's really important, dude.
Is that I think there's a difference to be made in, like, a ministry-focused band. So, like, Haste the Day has said that they were a ministry-focused band, right? So when they go on tour back in the day, there was no drinking. They all had to be together at night. Like, there's, like, expectations on each other. Like, we're going to live godly lives in a public portrayal to everyone. And when someone in the band was like, I'm not a Christian anymore, I don't want to do that, I want to drink on tour, I want to do this on tour, they're like, sorry, you have to leave the band. And the world blows up, right?
Right.
They kicked a guy out because he didn't have the same beliefs. It's like, well, the guy knew what he was signing up for. They knew from the beginning it was a ministry band. And
but
so
even they've said now that they regretted that. They shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, they wish that they weren't as strict. But
Yeah.
maybe it's for the best that they were. Like, who knows? Because most of those guys went on to do ministry.
Yeah.
Like, being worship directors at churches, being pastors. Like, but then there's Christian bands that are like, I don't want to give an example, but, you know, they're, if you didn't know they were a Christian band and you listened to them, you'd be like, and, you know, someone's like, hey, do you know they're a Christian band? You'd be like, what? Really? Oh, I didn't know that. Like, how do you not know?
Yeah.
Right? Are you really a Christian band if they don't know? Then maybe you're just Christians.
And that's, and like, truthfully, that's 90% of what our scene is.
Well, and I think some of that too is that, you know, the Christian parts are put behind screaming vocals. So It's like, oh, dude, that guitar riff's cool. Oh, that's such a crazy scream. I don't know what he's saying.
Right.
You know?
It just feels like to me that there was a time in 2005 to 2015, a decade of outspoken Christian metalcore. And it just isn't right now. Now, maybe it comes back, but there are some bands, but they are not at the top of the genre at all. Those bands in 2005 to 2015 were at the top of the genre, right?
Some of them still are. They're just not Christian.
They still are. They're just not Christian. Exactly. Yeah. And so, like, I don't know if it ever comes back, but it's like,
yeah.
Are we just going to have underground music and they get, you know, you have bands that get 15,000 plays a song? Like, is that what our genre is? Because you think of, I mean, there are obviously bands that are coming up that, like, do that. Like, I think of, like, Bloodlines is very outspoken, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not the top of the genre, though.
They deserve to be. They're so
I think
good.
so. They're great. Yeah, they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's a very just like, it almost feels depressing,
saying,
but is it? Like, I don't know.
Honestly, play counts don't bother me. Like, I actually like when I find a band that has barely any plays and I love it.
Right,
like,
but those bands are not
going
to. Yes, but those bands are not going to tour. Those bands are not going to do that. Like, they might, but, like, you're never going to.
Yeah, I get that. Right. You have less enjoyment as a listener because you might not be able to see them live. They might not put out more music. You know, I get that.
Yeah. So that's just, like, a really interesting, like.
But, like, in 2005, or later, like, bands were coming out, and we know for a fact they lied about being Christians so they could get on those Christian tours, scream the prayer. So they could
because
get in those Christian bookstores where all those kids are buying all those albums all the time.
It's the top of the genre, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what happens because of it. And so I don't even know. There might be the same amount of missional, outspoken Christian bands now as there were back then, right? It's not a very high percentage. Like we probably couldn't name 12 that are actively making music right now that are like missional focused bands. I couldn't.
So yeah, I don't know if I can pick all the bands right now off the top of my head. But that's an interesting thought, right? What is the Christian heavy music scene? Yeah. Are missional bands disappearing? Why aren't they, big? And it's probably about money. It's just not profitable.
Yes, I agree, man. Yeah.
And as a Christian father and husband, I need money to take care of my family.
Yep.
And being in a missional band, you don't really have that. So there's really just it's up to this next generation of kids that want to tour the world and take a chance.
Right.
But
and then this is getting us back to August Burns Red. August Burns Red is a band that's been doing it for 20 years. Every 2 years, like clockwork, they put out an album.
Not missional, but touring.
Right, that's what I'm saying. They're not that, though. Like, they are just positive, uplifting lyrics with Christian elements in some ways, right? But they're making vocals. A lot of money. They have lots of listeners. Like, this is their career.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why they are always touring, because this is what they do. A lot of the bands that we are listening to now that are up and coming, that's not what they do. They do that as a hobby.
Yeah.
Right? And so their work is an actual job.
Yeah, there's so many bands that I wished could be full-time. Like,
right.
If I had all the money in the world, man, I'd help so many of you guys out. I really would.
And so you think Fit for a King's a good example. Like, a lot of them do that. That's what they do full-time. Right? That's who they are because they're able to make it. But Fit for a King also lyrically, same as August Burns Red, positive, uplifting, some Christian elements, So it's just interesting, and I think
palatable by the Christian worldview.
Right, and it's this conversation I think leads us into the last song, which might be the most Christian of these songs on the album. The last song we're going to do is Reckoning. Who am I? So Reckoning is my second favorite song on the album, and I think most of that is because of Spencer Chamberlain.
Really? Like, he's the part that you're like, dude, this.
There's a lot, and we'll get to it, but this song starts off just like nasty, chuggy intro riff, straight to the point. Like, it's what I like about August Burns Red a ton, but this song is also 8 minutes long, and it feels like 4 songs. Right? It just like is split up and it's different and it's a story. It's like it could have been it could have been split up into multiple songs, I think.
I don't think it could have.
I think so.
If it did, I think some of those songs would be really not, bland. Because I think it builds on itself.
I don't know. Like, I get it. And I do really like the interlude. I think that's like the biggest piece where it just drops out. But I don't know.
Is that right before Spencer comes in?
Yeah. But I do feel like it Yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. Like, it all kind of works together in this ebb and flow, and it builds, and it brings it to this, like, end. But, man, like...
I like the whole thing. And, you know, I didn't know how much I liked it. So when it came out with a music video, and I remember watching the music video, just being floored.
Yeah.
Like we're on a journey here. This is a trip.
Yes.
Musically... it's like it's taking you somewhere. The guitars are just flowing through all these different riffs, and the tempos are changing, and Jake Lurs is screaming some things that you're like, what is he talking about? And then he screams real low and angry, and you're like, I'm mad too, and I don't know why. And then he, you know, high shrill screams, and right, because just like you said, like when it steps out and Spencer comes in, and you're like, I don't know, like it's kind of Silent Planet like.
Yes. Oh, that's good. That's a great comparison.
Just some weird things that they're doing, right? But man, there's so many lines in this that just stick out, because as a Christian, that's kind of like, whether it's a struggle or I don't know, it's just so relatable, I think. And even Spencer's part kind of surprises me.
Yeah.
Just because what he talks about, you know, because we know his stance and opinion on things.
Sure, and I think that goes to like who August Burns Red is, right? There, it's not going to be like super like overt, and I do know that Spencer wrote the part himself.
Yeah,
he was given the space to do it, and he wrote his own lyrics. And I mean, I like that because it feels genuine. It feels like he does it really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you can, from a Christian perspective, like look at it and be like, man, like even Spencer's lyrics kind of pushed this idea of like your life is not in your control, right? You've got to give up that idea of like holding on to everything, because God's will is what's good for your life. You know, like that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, that's how I see it. Except I feel like Spencer's lyrics are kind of like not for me. You know.
Possibly, yeah, I could see that.
So, okay, since we're just beating around the bush and people are like, what are you guys talking about? Give us an example. And I think one reason this song, I really like it so much is because it's so long. So every time you listen to it, there's little pieces that kind of stick out differently. But it's also like lyrically, it leaves me puzzled. Like I'm trying to figure this out. A lot of it's like kind of ambiguous. So it gets me like excited. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, they're not Christians. And I'm like, no, they're definitely Christian. But there's just lyrics in it that, okay, so there's a lyric that says, I know the way, you better pray. You know, I've done enough. And the response was, you won't measure up. Like, it's not enough. And, you know, he says, feeling like you don't know where you stand. And I'm like, I don't know. Does that mean with Christ? Sure. Do I have salvation? Like, I don't know what it means, you know. No matter what I do, I feel I have something to prove. Like, you're not good enough. You got to keep going. And it's kind of like a works-based thought. And so this is, you know, my Christian lens looking in. I'm sure if I tackled this song from not that lens, it could be a song about not living up to people's expectations, finding a purpose in this world, figuring out what the reckoning is that they're talking about. And I think there's a line that stuck out to me just because of the way the world is right now with accepting certain sins and like having a pride in it, is that it says, in a world where right and wrong don't belong, right? The world tells you that there's no sin. There's nothing bad. Everything's okay. Everything is permissible, right? Sure. And he says there's no sense of what is justified. Yeah. Then he, you know, screams, Judgment Day means reckoning for you. But I don't know, there's just a lot of stuff, and I feel like there's a struggle in here too, and I really like, there's this imagery that I think every Christian and non-Christian can agree with, is that he says this line, my disaster began when I looked up. I was both compelled and condemned. I struggle so hard, I do my best. Like, you're like, oh, Christianity, like, I'm so curious, who is God? Who's Jesus? What is all this hubbub people talk about Christian faith? And then you go there and they're like, oh, if you do this, you're sinning. If you do this, it's like, okay.
Right.
So I'm condemned.
Yeah, I mean, yes, and I think the end, like, so first I want to say, like, from my perspective, like, take out lyrical content. I'm gonna jump in that in a second. Like, Spencer's interlude, his vocal part, like, is amazing. Going from him singing, talking to screaming, it's vintage Spencer Chamberlain. It's what I love about Under Oath. It's awesome, and I think it fits really well here with the guitar that's almost like an 8-bit tone guitar, like, going on. It's like super sick, and so love that part. I think it adds a ton. It might be the best feature on the album, one of my favorite features on any song, just because I think it's so, like, you know who it is, you know, like, that's part of what I love too, is because he's so big, especially in our scene. It's like, oh, that's Spencer Chamberlain, and wow, he's on an August Burns Red song, and that's great. So I love that. Now, on, like, lyrical content, I told you earlier in this episode that on an interview I saw, Matt Greiner said he wrote one lyric and it was in this song.
Yes, what was it?
He wrote "Death Below" on a tightrope. That was it.
Sick.
Which is
the
album title in this song.
And a track.
And a track, Tightrope.
Death Below on a tightrope.
And so, like, he was asked in this interview, like, okay, so what is, like, the theme of Death Below? He mentioned this, like, he's like, there's a lot of different themes, but I think this could be, like, the overarching theme is this idea of death below on a tightrope. Like, you are walking your life on this tightrope, this idea of, like, everything. Like, you have to stay on this tightrope, and if you fall off, all that's below is death, and you're done. Like, imagine the anxiety in your life if you make one mistake and you're done, or if you do the wrong thing and you're gone. And in reality, there's not death below. It's water, right? And if you make a mistake, sometimes it can catch you. It's healing. It's like this idea of, like, we're not on a tightrope, you know, you can get back on that, you know, you just go take off for a little bit. And so that's where I think this comes in towards the end, maybe like the hope. Like, I love the ending when Jake comes back in after Spencer has his vocal
there's
part.
that part where Jake and Spencer come back in.
Yes.
And they both scream together. It's so brutal. Yeah, and they do talk about grace in that part, don't they?
Yeah, like the very, very end, you know, that whole idea is the reckoning won't bring you hope, death below on a tightrope. Take your hands off your life, it won't consume you. The altar will give you life and not kill you. I set my sights on the impossible, endless debt, making grace unstoppable. And so it does talk a little bit about grace, and now it's not necessarily, in some people's perspective, probably God's grace, but like our Christian lens, we say, man, that's perfect, right? Like, take your hands off of your own life and let God's will lead you, right? And those mistakes that you do make, right, that's okay. It's going to give you life, and it's endless, like, debt, like this idea of, like, I think this goes back to what you said, the lyrics too. Like, he says, you know, I've done enough. And then the answer is, you'll never measure up. It's okay that we'll never measure up because God's grace is unstoppable. You know?
Yeah, and I like how, like, a lot of the lyrics, and maybe what's interesting too is that a lot of the sentences, they don't, like, build off of each other. It's just a sentence.
Yeah.
And, like, when he says, is it what you've done or what you'll do in me? I need to know so I will find peace. And, like, that's such a struggle, you know?
Yeah. And then, but then, like, how do you not read that and be like, that's God?
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
you know, belief is believing what you cannot see is another line he screams, you know,
right.
That's another one. But
and we know Jake wrote this. Jake wrote everything except for Spencer's part. And so it's coming from the perspective of a professing Christian that he's writing this, right? And so obviously, like, this purpose he's giving out is, like, his intention is not my will, your will, God, right?
Yep.
Like, that's it, you know. I'm going to take my own hands off my life and let you lead me to where I need to go.
yeah.
And so it's awesome because I think this idea of death below on a tightrope, I think that's how we walk our life sometimes, like, scared of the mistake, scared of falling, taking a risk, and everything below is just like death if that happens.
Yeah, there is like a biblical reference right? He says, the standard we have for others will be our fate.
Yeah.
Which is totally a Bible reference. And it kind of played like the other songs, when we took our previous song discussion, when we were like, judging people and putting them in boxes, and like we have all these expectations. That standard that we have is what will be used on us.
Yeah.
Just kind of harsh. But there is one part that I really like. It's, just the way Jake screams it, and it goes into a breakdown. But when he says, endless arguments with myself, all that remains is the shame.
Oh, yeah, that
part's
awesome.
no case to be made, punched into total darkness. If what I've done imprisons me, then your will sets me free.
Yeah.
And the way he's like, he just screams free and holds it out. Awesome breakdown.
Yeah.
Love it. But yeah, when Jake comes in, it's a whole nother song, though. Truly is. Not Jake. When Spencer comes in, it's a whole nother song.
And he does it so well. And it's cool. Like, the idea of, like, just setting aside, like, a space and being like, go for it. And then just accepting what's written. Like, that's pretty cool, like, to me, that a band can do that. And obviously to Spencer, too, to know, like, this is an August Burns Red album. I'm gonna write what I think would be good for this song. It just fits really well. And I do know, like, I think it said, too, on this interview that Dustin, the bassist, like, he was a big, like, part of not, like, the writing piece, but, like, the vocal delivery of this song especially. Which is interesting, like, how the vocal should be delivered with the music. And I don't even think of that ever. Like, when a song's being written, I just assume, like, oh, that's got to be the lyricist or whatever. But there's that even goes into creating a song.
Yeah. That's, like, the hardest part, too,
It has to be, yeah.
Like, I think about, like, just taking, like, a random instrumental song and being like, how would you add words to this?
Right.
Like, how do you fit words into that? How do you choose when to scream? When do you choose to let the music ride? I think that's the hardest part.
Yeah. It's a great song to end. Whenever the song's over, I want more. And on Spotify, like, when I'm listening on the album, whatever, and song's over, and then it, like, goes to the next song, which is a similar to August Burns Red, it'll play Wage War or the new, whatever, like, War of Ages.
Similar artists, yeah.
Not new War of Ages, new Wolves at the Gate cover. Plays a similar artist. I'm like, like, dang it. I thought there was another track. And so I do love this track, and I think it ends so strong, right? We started this album with, like, super atmospheric, like, nice ease our way in, and, like, it finishes heavy.
So what's your ranking?
Overall, I put this at 4.
What? Number 4?
Fourth best, yeah.
Oh, wow. So out of 10, you're putting it at 4.
For me, I would say, in no particular order, Messengers, Constellations, Leveler. No, okay. Messengers, Constellations, no particular order. Third, Leveler. Fourth might be Death Below.
Dang.
What's your fourth? Oh, your fourth. I know your fourth.
What's my fourth?
It's no, I can't see it. Phantom Anthem.
Yeah, that's definitely higher than it.
Like, I put this ahead of Guardians, I think.
Yeah, I do too. I'll put it ahead of Found in Faraway Places.
Me too.
I'll put it, I don't know. Rescue and Restore used to be so low, but it's growing on me like crazy. But it's got to go somewhere. It's not 10th.
It's above Thrill Seeker for you.
So I would probably put it like 7.
7.
Yeah.
You just
6.
said like 4 albums is ahead of Thrill Seeker, Rescue and Restore.
I didn't say that one.
Oh, Found in Faraway Places. Excuse me. Thrill
and
Seeker. Guardians.
And then that one. Then Rescue and Restore.
Then Phantom Anthem.
Then, Leveler, Messengers, Constellations. I don't know. So it was really
That's
funny
tough.
when this album came out, right? Everyone's like doing their like album tier, right? On like this, I'm in this August Burns Red fan Facebook page thing. And everyone's like being nice about it, like, well, they're like doing one tier per album. You have to pick, right? Tier S, tier A, tier B. And I just put everything on tier S, but I put Thrill Seeker, I can't, like, on F or something. And man, the reactions I got, it was hilarious. I was like, since everyone seems to be doing this, here's the correct answer.
That's got to be more nostalgia than anything, because I think even the band would be like, we barely knew how to play our instruments at that point. Like, we were 16, 17. Like, they would have to say, like...
different vocalists, like...
Yeah. But there, I mean, obviously, I think any album you can pick out some songs like, oh, I like that. But, like, Thrill Seeker is just so...
I don't know. Like,
raw.
There's a guy on our Discord that I think says Thrill Seeker is their best work.
Really?
Yeah. It just never clicked for me. And, like, we've said this on the Leveler episode that, like, for me, I didn't get into August Burns Red until Leveler. I didn't like them before that. And I felt like with Leveler, I was like, I understand.
Yeah.
And I went back and I loved Constellations.
Yeah.
And then I liked Messengers. And ever since Leveler, I've been on board, like, the whole way. And really, when the Christmas album came out, I was like, I don't know, favorite band?
Yeah.
Maybe. Like, because that really seals the deal for me. Like, every Christmas, man, I play that album so much, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. I think that's a big piece of why they've continued to be pretty popular among a lot of people, because now during Christmas everyone plays their stuff, man. Like,
yeah. All of my coworkers know who August Burns Red is because
of that.
I play the Christmas music whenever I have a chance.
Yep.
Yeah, and like, the metalheads are like, oh, who's this? I'm like, you won't like their music because it's not AC/DC or it's not Iron Maiden, but check this out. And they love the Christmas music.
Right.
Except for like Joy to the World, where there's actually words or something. Right.
He's actually screaming.
Yeah. And they're like, yeah, the rest of it though, oh, it's so good. It's so amazing. This music's awesome. I'm like, I don't know. But anyway.
No, I think what I love about August Burns Red too, and you see this if you ever see them play a show, like, and we said this, like, I think we mentioned every band member talking about the 6 songs we chose. They're so, like, integral in, like, their writing way they do it that they're all over this thing, right? They've been together for, nearly 20 years as a band that hasn't made lineup changes. And so you'll see at a show that for a song, Dustin is going to be playing guitar and JB's playing bass or whatever, and it's just like they switch it up and like they're able to do that because they write each other's parts and they do that. And so it's just cool to see like how they continue to keep growing. And I think this is a good piece of like, yes, they're still traditional to their sound, but there's definitely some new pieces in this album. Well, does that wrap up our episode?
Yeah, I think that wraps it up. I got nothing else to talk about. I'm excited to do our bonus episode to see what you think about the other songs. I think there might be some arguing on a few.
Oh.
So, thanks everyone for listening. If you like what we're doing, join our Patreon.
Yes.
Buy us a cup of coffee on there. Get access to bonus episodes. We've recently revamped some of it, and we're still kind of finding the right groove of things. And so if you have opinions and you want us to do things and throw money at us, we are down. We'll do it. So check it out. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook. Join our Discord. Chat with us and other bands and other people. It's really not about our podcast.
Right.
It's just a Discord server for people who like the same kind of music that we do. So check it out, and you can find our links probably in the bio of this episode, or check out our socials or whatever.
That's right.
So thanks for listening.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening.